welcome to this great episode of Tech Talk Coast to Coast. My buddy Matt Baldridge from ttjtech.biz stops by. We talk and discuss and review some Apple products that we use in our everyday life. We also talk about the upcoming free iPad for All computing course that is completely free. More details on that in the show. So sit back and enjoy this great episode of Tech Talk Coast to Coast. Hello everybody, this is Cliff from Stir It Up. This is our Tech Talk Coast to Coast podcast, and I have my good friend, brother in Christ, buddy in teaching, Matt Baldridge from TTJ Tech.
Yes, thank you so much. Great to be here this afternoon. I am Matt of TTJ Tech, as Cliff already mentioned, ttjtech.biz, and you can also find me on Apple Podcasts as TTJ Tech Talk, as well as on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/@TTJ Tech. We've got the TTJ Tech show there, and we've also got The Vessel, which are our Christian and Bible study podcasts, devotionals, and family podcasts and things of that nature. So thanks so much for having me today.
You always got to one-up me, don't you?
Anytime I can.
I'm just kidding. Now I got to tell them about all my shows. Stir it up. I also have a couple Christian podcasts as well as on YouTube. Just for disclosure, disclaimer, whatever you want to call it. I always put my shows up on the podcast channel now first because I'm working with a different host, which puts it everywhere. I mean, there are too many to name, but the most popular ones is, of course, Apple Podcasts, which is all of our first choice. And then, of course, you got Matt's buddies over at Spotify. And then you got Google Podcasts and Radio Public, wherever you're on iHeartRadio, and a couple of other ones that I can't think of the name of. But anyway, if you search for Preach to Teach, which is my ministry podcast, which I do some preaching and testimonies there. I also have my senior pastor who does some teachings once a month. We call it Preach to Teach because we don't want to yell at you. We don't want to holler at you. We want to teach you and make sure you can understand and break down God's Word. We also have my Sports Talk Coast to Coast podcast. Again, search for it in any podcast app. It should come up. Now that we got all the plugs and semantics out the way, let's get into some Apple product reviews. All right, Matt, so you have the new iPad Pro 11th inch M2, I think it is, by Apple that they just released back in, what was it, January, I guess?
It was somewhere around there. I think late fall. I think it was before Christmas. But yes, I've used all of the latest iPads, with I guess the exception being the iPad Mini. But other than that, the new 10th generation iPad, the 10.9-inch iPad Air, and the 11-inch iPad Pro. I've not used the 12.9-inch, but these are all fantastic iPads. Every one of the iPads in the lineup is extremely capable, extremely powerful, and I think pretty much, for most people, any of those models would do exactly what you need. There are certain benefits to each model. Of course, if you go up to the iPad Pro, you have 4 speakers instead of 2. You have that's the only one with the M2 processor, although the iPad Air does have the M1.
I was just about to say, is the only difference between this generation and the last one, or the last 2 generations that you have owned pretty much, is pretty much the software, or not the software, but the hardware, the speed, M1 coming to M2, maybe a better display, and a bit more organization, I guess, for stage manager, stuff like that, right?
So the M2 versus the M1 is one of the big differences, yes, and I can't honestly say that that's even noticeable. I'm sure it is in benchmarks, and maybe in really, really high-end tasks it might, be a second or 2 quicker, but I mean, you really don't see that, and so, I mean, M1, as you know, is no slouch. It's a fantastic processor and will be for years to come. The M2 for our Apple Pencil users has the new hover feature, so you can sort of preview your drawings in the air before you actually place the pencil on the display. And the other thing the iPad Pro has now, that it's the only model to have, is Wi-Fi 6E. Now, again, you're going to be limited as to how much you actually notice that, especially if you don't have a Wi-Fi 6E router. Now, as Comcast customers, we do have a Wi-Fi 6E router. Praise God, they're one of the few in the industry to actually offer that standard. But I mean, you know, you're not going to see that much of a difference in most cases between Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E. Not to downplay it, because it's a great iPad.
I was about to say, most providers aren't going to provide 6E right now anyway. Comcast is probably the king of internet providers anyway. But, I mean, I have Spectrum. I don't think they provide it, but as you know, I know yours are probably collecting dust unless you've sold them as of yet. But the Eero, the updated version that I have is 6E, so...
Right.
All right, let's talk about the Apple TV. Now, not much has changed about this except the fact that it's double the storage and less the cost, and it's a little smaller footprint, right?
Right, smaller footprint, double the storage, which was definitely a beautiful thing. A big processor bump. I think that surprised a lot of people, because I don't think anyone was really expecting to see that, of course, when it was released. But, you know, the overall package is really, really enticing. Not because it's going to enable anything new that you couldn't really do before, but because it's going to future-proof the experience for quite a while. And I mean, that's got the A15 Bionic processor, which is extremely powerful. That's what they had on the it's what they have on the iPhone 13 and 14 models, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. I know the 14 Pro and Pro Max might be one above that. And the other thing is just a side thing. The remote now uses USB-C to charge instead of Lightning.
I'm glad you brought up the remote, because there was a it wasn't announced, but yes, they did change the remote to USB-C to USB-C, or whatever you have to plug it in. I mean, you could be USB-C to USB to charge, because it really doesn't take that long to charge anyway. But a charging cable is not provided this time.
Right. Yes. And that's one of those things, I guess, where, you know, trying to I don't know whether that's, you know, environmental or cost cutting.
That kind of surprised me though, because I could understand if it was still USB-C to Lightning. I mean, because we all have multiple USB Lightning cables. But based on the fact that the bottom part that you plug into the remote is USB-C, it kind of surprised me that they didn't provide that one, based on the fact that, you know, maybe because we all have iPhones and iPads, and I guess if you have an iPad Pro, which everybody doesn't, then you already have a USB-C to USB-C charging cable. But that one kind of surprised me that they didn't provide that.
all of the latest iPads in the lineup, Air, you know, the standard iPad, all the way across the board now are USB-C, but this is the first year that that's the case. So if you have an older iPad or just an iPhone or something, you have to pick up a USB-C to USB-C cable, either from Apple or, you know, your favorite third-party website. But it is, you know, that's one of the other features. I think the big thing about this, and there's some Wi-Fi upgrades and HDR, you know, for more video formats supported and audio formats. So it's all around a solid offering. But I do think my favorite thing about the new Apple TV is the fact that it was doubled in storage across the board.
And $50 cheaper.
And 50, that's true. That's right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, though. If they get the smaller version, so it's 128 and then there's 64. When they get the 64 version, they don't get the Ethernet port on the back, right?
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. The 64 gig one is just called the Apple TV 4K Wi-Fi, I guess, and then the 128 is Wi-Fi plus Ethernet. So if you do hardwire, and again, that, you know,
when's the last time you hardwired yours? Because I haven't done it since maybe 2015.
Yeah, it's typically not necessary.
I've never had any hiccups or people that you need to be hardwired to get the greatest speeds. No, not with an Apple product, you don't.
Well, no, and as especially if you have good internet. I mean, if you're running on a slow connection, you know, like
what would you
under
consider
100.
Slow?
Well, that's exactly what. Yeah, that's all relative.
I mean, because my slow would be like maybe 30 or 40 megabits, but I mean, most providers don't even let you start. They start out with a $1.50 or more. So
Well, yeah, cable providers especially. Some of the other ones, you can still see some of those slower speeds. And that would be the thing. If you're down under 100, especially down to, like you said, 20, 30, 40 megabits per second.
And it also depends on how many devices you have connected to, because you and I...
It absolutely does.
We're 40 plus. I mean, 100 megabytes is not about to help us.
I think last count, because you can see that in the Wi-Fi apps that you use, right, of course. And I think at last count, I was at 56 or 57 devices. Now, granted, a lot of those are sitting idle most of the time because they're smart home devices or printers and stuff.
Doorbells, cameras that only activate with motion and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Let's go on to something. I have the Apple TV 2. Or the new Apple TV as well. There's nothing I need to add except the fact that I like, maybe some people don't know this, when you have a smart doorbell connected to your network in your home app, all that must be synchronized correctly. But if somebody comes to your door and you're watching a movie or you're on your Apple TV, it automatically switches to that camera and shows you who's at the door.
That's exactly right.
I love that feature. I can't see, but it just, for security reasons, it's just, the world today is not safe in certain areas and certain things. And I mean, I'm not even going to say certain areas. It could be all areas, just depending on the person and what they have up their sleeve. But that's another topic for another day. Let's move on to one of our favorite devices, and that's the HomePod, the updated 2023 HomePod. We used to call it the big brother. Now I guess we can call it the new brother or the updated brother or whatever. But we both I have a pair, and I'm in the process of ordering another pair. Do you only have one pair, or did you get two?
I have one pair as of right now.
Okay.
I plan to probably get another one. I originally got these HomePods for our basement because we've redone that. We got, a lot of stuff down there, mini fridge, big TVs, pool table, all these sorts of things.
Right. I even mounted my 75-inch TV for right before the Super Bowl party this year, too. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that was sort of where,
It's great being a homeowner. You don't have to ask for permission to do things.
Exactly.
Praise
and
God
so
for
I had
that.
originally gotten I got this pair for our basement, but when I started listening to them, they were too good, and we spend most of our time upstairs in the living room. We got a split level home, so I moved them upstairs, and I said, we'll deal with the basement later. Next time we're ready to have something down there, I'll probably, pick up another pair. They are, first of all, getting a pair is not required, but honestly, it's the only way to go if you want really the best experience.
I mean, I'd rather pay $600 or, $550 because I work for Target and 10% discount. But anyway,
right.
I'd rather pay $550 for a pair than pay $2,000 for a Sonos or a Sony high-end.
Well, that's what I was
soundbar.
just going to say. Exactly. Anybody who is not just trying to because of course there's some people that just whatever Apple releases, they choose not to like it for whatever reason. Anybody who's not doing that will admit that these HomePods, even two of them together, are priced right at the same point as other high-end speakers and a lot lower than the price of some high-end speakers. Like you just mentioned.
The only thing that I
$2,000.
wish is that you could pair more than two. So, like, to make a surround sound system. Who knows? Maybe that'll be in the future. But I wish you could have, because I'm a sound buff. Like, when I'm watching a movie, I like to hear the booms and the thumps and the waters and the oceans and all that good stuff. So, my ultimate setup would be to put one in each corner of the room. So, I have 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of them. But, I mean, ultimately, you could. You just have to unpair them and select them all. That could get a bit tedious, but...
Yeah, you'd have to do it through AirPlay, too. That's right.
But
right.
all in all, the stereo sound, or the pair that you put on your Apple TV and that you can also make your default audio source is great sound. On top of that, you can hook it into your other sound source, like if you have a gaming system or a DVD player, which, I mean, I don't know who even owns one anymore, but you could hook your HomePod pair into your ARC audio return channel, and it will play those sources that are connected to your TV through those speakers. I have used my Xbox on that, kids playing, fighting games and other role-playing games. I have a football game that I play every now and again called Madden. I'm pretty sure people know what that is, but the sound coming out of them HomePods is phenomenal.
It is, and it truly is the best speaker in the house, both for music and for, the TV. And as Cliff said, you can make it the standard default audio source for your Apple TV. It has the spatial audio, as well as the what is that? I guess it does the lossless audio too. So it's got all of these latest features that Apple Music supports. And it just, or when you're listening to a show that's done in Dolby Atmos, you can have, like if there's, for example, a jet plane or a rocket or something flying across the, it'll actually move. The sound will move from one side of the room to the other too.
I know maybe it did it when I actually did have a 5.1 rear speaker subwoofer surround sound hooked up, but Apple amplifies that so much. Like I was listening to a movie where there was a car driving and it literally zoomed from one speaker to the other. So,
right.
And it's more distinct. So, don't think that this is just a HomePod that they took off the shelf, smacked the label 2023 on it, and it's working. There's more updated stuff. Like I read the description, you're getting less tweeters, but less microphones, I guess, and more tweeters or something like that. And it can detect whether it's by a wall or on a shelf or in the middle of the room, so it knows how to distribute the audio a little bit better. So don't think you're just getting a 2017 HomePod with the 2023 name on it. No, this is updated software and hardware.
It's faster process. And the other thing that it has, which is really interesting, and I'm not 100% sure which other smart speakers do this. Maybe some of the higher end Echoes, or maybe even now the Echo Dot. I don't know. But there is a temperature and humidity sensor built into the HomePods.
Yes, it is.
So
because when I ask Siri what the temperature is in my home, I have the UK voice. He'll say from 68 degrees to 75 average. Right, because they'll tell you all those rooms combined. That every room that has a HomePod has a temperature and humidity sensor, so it not only reports the temperature, but it can be used in scenes and automations and stuff too. Yes. The HomePod, whether you have the Big Brother, the updated version, or the minis that released a year and a half or so ago, you're going to get the best audio experience. Now, the minis, I think they're designed for bedrooms personally. Or maybe even a kitchen area.
Yeah, exactly. A kitchen, a bedroom, that's right.
Right. They're not going to give you this. You can put 4 HomePod minis together, and it's not even going to come close to the sound of one Big Brother, for lack of a better term. And I love Apple. I love the fact that they tried to get into the affordable market, but I know for a fact that a reason that they brought back this Big Brother is because so many people missed it and wanted it in high demand. So they put some updates in it, released it again, and now everybody goes home happy.
Well, sometimes what happens is, and again, you go back to Apple releases something and some people criticize it. Look, I'm not trying to be, whatever. Okay, I get it. But, it does happen. And that's exactly what happened with the first generation HomePod, because people didn't understand that it was designed first and foremost to be a speaker.
I was about to say, remember, I got rid of my first one because I sold it to you because I didn't have Apple Music at the time.
Right.
I just felt it wasn't, I was paying too much for not enough. I wasn't using it enough. So I didn't want it to collect dust and stuff like that. But, when I signed up for Apple One and, it's all history now. Now I have HomePods in pretty much every room in my house. So,
exactly. And the feature set has improved since then, too.
Yes, it has. I think people's biggest pushback when it first was released was the price point, and like you said, because they didn't know what it could and can do. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can connect third-party music services to the HomePod, right?
Yes, you can. Pandora supports it. I think that Amazon Music supports it, if I'm not mistaken. And there may even be another one. I know it also has TuneIn Radio support and iHeartRadio support. And then, of course, you can play anything through AirPlay too. So anything that will play on your phone or iPad or Apple TV will play on your HomePods as well. So there's, a couple of different ways to do that. And that brings me to another point too. You mentioned about how awesome the HomePods are, which they are. And I think, the best thing about all of it, Apple, I believe personally, in my opinion, is better than anybody at the integration of the hardware, software, and services, and the continuity between their devices. Look, I do like, some other, we, as I mentioned earlier with the internet, we are Comcast customers, so we do have Xfinity TV and stuff, and they make a great system. But there's nothing like when you are watching the Apple TV and you pick up your phone and it shows right up on your phone what you're watching, and you make a FaceTime call while you're watching TV, and it says you want to share this with the person that you're, or you can control it with your Apple Watch, and you can control the HomePod with. It's a level of integration between devices that is truly unmatched by any other platform.
Completely agree, especially when it comes to, not even the HomePods in your Apple TV. Let's jump over to your Apple, your iPhone and your iPad and your Mac being all signed to the same Apple ID, being able to hand off phone calls, FaceTime calls, email, all that. If y'all can't tell, we love Apple, and
right.
You might be a person that doesn't, and maybe you didn't know some of this stuff, but Apple, they're not paying us to do this, to say none of this. This is just from our experience, because I've been using Apple products since probably 2010. Matt goes back a little bit further than that, maybe 08, 09.
Right.
But the bottom line is, the accessibility is built in. We're both totally blind. Both been blind since we were 3. And Apple has gave us freedom to do things on our own without having to ask a family member, can you read this text to me? Can you tell me what this mail says? I can pick up my iPhone right now, go to the mailbox, and do, what's that scan text thing? What's it called?
Yeah, the live text.
The live text. And point my phone at it, and I can read my mail by myself. It's just unreal how much Apple built accessibility. Now, other companies are trying. They're catching up, but personally, in my opinion, they'll never get there. They can tout it, but I don't think that their commitment is as big as Apple's. And Apple has all this stuff built in. We don't have to buy an extra screen reader with our Mac. We don't have to go get TalkBack from Google to make our iPhone work. We don't have to ask somebody to read us a time off our watch, even though there are Braille watches that are high end and do certain things. But I like Minnie Mouse on my phone my watch personally. So I'm telling you, I bought the Apple Watch specifically to get Minnie Mouse. I didn't buy it for no other reason. Now, the other features are great. I like being able to ask Siri stuff and get the weather and all that, but Minnie Mouse, I love Minnie Mouse. So, so we've done the iPads, the Apple TV, the HomePods. I think that's pretty much it. Let's talk about some rumors, or for lack of a better term, things people think Apple are about to announce here in the spring. I heard that a low end, because the high end one isn't ready, but a low end virtual reality headset is coming sometime in WWDC this year, summer.
Right. I've been hearing all kinds of different rumors about that, and that the latest one that I've heard is that the announcement will be in June at the Worldwide Developers Conference, like you said. This is a very interesting, and I don't know. If anybody can do it, Apple can do it, but I don't know how or if the community of visually impaired users is going to make use of this, because of course a lot of that is visual. So I guess we'll wait and see. But it looks to be, and my kids have a virtual reality headset. They have the what used to be called Oculus Quest. Now you have to call it Meta Quest, I guess, because Facebook parent company was named Meta, whatever. And they really enjoy it. It's mostly gaming and so forth, but they have a lot of fun with it. My daughter, both my kids really were playing with it just this week, and just yesterday even. Whereas the Apple one, I think what according to the rumors, now again, none of this has been confirmed by Apple at this point, but according to the rumors, it will be heavy on gaming, but it will also be like you'll be able to type in the air to send messages. You'll be able to use it for FaceTime calls. You'll be able to watch movies and shows. Again, these are all rumors, And the other difference, too, between this is supposedly one of the mixed reality headsets. Like, you'll be able to go back and forth between I guess VR and AR, and I don't know what exactly. So a lot of this is up in the air. Price point is up in the air because initially it was being stated by the pundits that the Apple headset was going to be akin to some of the other really high-end pro VR headsets, which, can range from $2,000 to $3,000 or more. Now that they're talking about a low end one, I don't know where that fits into things. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. I was hearing somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000. It's something that doesn't interest me very much personally, but I mean, who am I? This might be something that jumps off with the other community that likes to spend, some people just like to spend money, period, because they have nothing else better to do. But, we'll see. I forgot to mention, too, about the Apple TV, too. The one thing I do like, and I never used it up until about 3 or 4 months ago, where, the headache that some of these apps make you jump through to turn on audio description. But if you go into your settings and have audio description come on automatically, it doesn't matter what app it is. Apple TV Plus, HBO Max, Showtime, Paramount, anywhere. If the show has audio description, it's automatically going to start when you start listening or playing that or watching that show. So that's a great feature.
Well, that is a great feature, and Apple is really, really good at that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just like single sign-on, where your TV apps, if you watch Lifetime or Food Network or something through their own app, you don't have to do necessarily 3 different steps to sign in with your provider or something. You can store that information right on the Apple TV, and it automatically signs in for you. The TV app itself, I still say that the Apple TV app is my favorite feature of the Apple TV. Not even so much because of Apple TV Plus. I mean, there's some good content on there, but a lot of it is also what I consider to be not appropriate for families and Christians and so forth. So, whatever. But what I love is the up next section. I start watching something and it just shows up there. And, I can search for something in the TV app and it shows me across all of the different services that I have, what I can watch. So, I mean, they've just done such a fantastic job of, they know how to do interface. Let's put it that way. They're really good at doing UI.
Yes, they have. Well, I think it's about that time. iPad for all computing, the crown jewel of ttjtech.biz, along with Stir It Up alongside teaching it. We're going on our 5th year, right? Or is this year number 6?
Absolutely. This is year number 6.
We started in 2018, so yeah, this is year number 6. Season 6 of iPad for all computing. It started out as, what did you call it at first?
It was originally replacing your computer with an iPad. That was the initial title of the course, and we decided that there are, while it's certainly possible to do that, and I've done that, we decided, there may be some people who are not interested in doing that or not ready to do that, but they could still benefit because there's so much that can be done with these iPads, really all your computing needs. So that's where that term came from, iPad for all computing, which is what we've called it ever since then.
Now, when we initially started this course back in April of 2018, you touted that there was probably only 3 things that you couldn't do with your iPad. What's that number down to now?
Honestly, for most people, just depending on your needs, for most people that's down to 0. There's one or two, there's probably one thing stands out in particular, and it's sort of a niche thing. But if you have music on CDs or something, and you want to try to bring them into your actual music library, that still really can only be done by putting a traditional, Mac or PC in the middle there to sync that music over. But with people having Apple Music and so forth, that has become less and less an issue anyway. One of the things back in 2018 that you could not do with the iPad was submit books to Apple directly for sale on Apple Books, and you could not submit apps for sale on the App Store. Both can now be done from the iPad, though the app part is developing apps on an iPad is not as robust yet as it is on the Mac, but I truly believe that will come with time, because often Apple will introduce something with, what they view as the most essential features, and then they'll build out on that as they get requests for it and as they continue to refine it. So I expect we'll see that with Swift Playgrounds, which is how you develop apps on the on the iPad. And of course, the third thing back in 2018 was managing like servers and remote desktop, or doing managing your external drives and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, you probably do more of that stuff than I do, but that's not an issue anymore on iPad.
I really don't. I mean, managing a server, most of the work is the initial setup. As you know, you plug it in, you make sure you can access it from all your devices, and you're pretty much done with it, unless you want to move something around, or you work for Paramount or Sony, and you're moving around movie clips or something. But other than that, I mean, it's one of those set it and forget it things. So, I'm not going to say confused, but I'm wondering what Apple's direction is now, though, because as you know, if you've taken our More with the Mac class, and you can find that on any podcast platform, just search for the words More with the Mac. It's definitely an Apple podcast. But with the update to Ventura, the system preferences have been replaced with system settings, and it looks just like your iOS and your iPad and iPhone settings, correct?
Yes. Well, it's funny that you would bring that up, because if you read the articles and the stories of the history of this and so forth, when Steve Jobs conceived the iPad in his mind and decided that Apple was going to, create that device, he envisioned it being something extremely simple and yet very powerful. But he deliberately did not want now this is what people say. Obviously, I never talked to the guy, so this could be, things that sort of spin from one thing to another too. But, the accepted wisdom is that he deliberately did not want certain features in the iPad, which includes multitasking, by the way. Like, he wanted multitasking in the sense that, if you were playing music, you could also be in Maps or something like that. But this idea of like using multiple apps on the same screen and stuff, he did not want that. So the story goes, he wanted it to be, you open an app, when you're done with the app, you press the home button. He wanted something that you could use whether you were 2 years old or 92. And he wanted all of that other stuff, the file system, all of that stuff to be completely obscured from the user, to keep things very simple. But what's happened since that time is that as people have been wanting to do more and more stuff on their iPad, the public has started demanding some of these things. Like, when I initially got an iPad, you couldn't just save files anywhere you wanted to. You could not unzip or download files from the internet. Well, people do enough of this stuff on their iPad, they're going to want the ability to be able to do that. And then, of course, multitasking, with multiple apps on the same screen and drag and drop, it becomes sort of an obvious thing that if you're really going to use this iPad for full-time computing, you're going to need at least some of that. So Apple has been tasked with something very challenging, I think, which is that they've got to maintain the simplicity and the ease of use of an iPad while adding that power and functionality. Now, in my opinion, so far, they've been able to do it. I still find the iPad just as easy to use as I always have, but they've added so much power and capability and functionality. So, hopefully that's the track that continues. I don't know where the Mac fits into all that, or where the iPad fits into the Mac. But, if you talk to, if you listen to some of the interviews with the Apple executives, they make it very clear that, it's never been their intention for a person to have to make a choice between, like the whole premise that we always talk about, that it's possible to replace your traditional computer with an iPad. Apple wants you to be very careful when you say stuff like that, because they don't want their users to feel like they have to make that choice. If you want to have 2 iPads and a Mac, or 2 Macs, or whatever, you do that for the purpose that it benefits you. So Apple's been very clear that they've never intended for one to cannibalize or replace the other. They want their users to have the choice and the decision. And the other thing too is, we don't know, for many, many years, every time Apple would be asked if there would ever be a touchscreen Mac, they outright said no. That there's no chance there's going to be a touchscreen Mac. It's not in the plan.
I've seen a rumor that somebody was looking at it.
Exactly.
that you're thinking about it.
They've become closer to the vest on that answer, and their more recent answers have been playing it coy. They're not being quite as definitively against it. So, you never know what we might see in the next few years.
Right. Well, I love both. I love all Apple products. I mean,
right.
There's probably not one that I haven't touched or owned except for the Mac Pro, which I will never have a use for that. I mean,
yeah.
I never say never, but hey, maybe Stirred Up Studio will become a video production company. I don't know.
Right,
who knows?
Right.
But, if I'm in my office, my Mac is my choice. But if I'm on the move, in the car, at the kitchen table, the iPad is where it's at. I mean, it's my mobile computing solution.
Right.
You can get a MacBook Pro, fully loaded for about $1,900, maybe even less if you just go with a MacBook Air. But, it gets a little spendy though when you want to max everything out with the iPad Pro. So say you go with the 12.9, 2 terabytes, and the Magic Keyboard that I hate so much and Matt loves so much that costs $350. You're probably getting in the neighborhood of a fully maxed out 2023 M2 MacBook Pro with the Max chip, because you're coming in probably just under $2,500, right? 2 terabytes, right. 12.9, $350 keyboard, and who knows what other accessories you might buy?
Right, absolutely. So you're very much on par with that. And so then it really does become personal preference, which I just, I love using the interface of the iPad. I love the touchscreen.
What
and
size
I also
do you have with the new one you have?
So the
I know you got the 11-inch, but I mean the storage.
Well, I have 256 on everything now. And that's, to me, plenty. I mean, you can go, as you said, all the way up to 2 terabytes, but I like the 256.
Yeah, I remember when we both had the 12.9. We had the 512.
Right.
And I didn't even come close to doing that. Now I don't even when I'm leaning towards the iPad 10th generation 256, but it's about to be March. It's the Wednesday. And
yes,
usually the iPad Air refreshes in November, so I'm probably just gonna wait it out and get that with the M2 and roll with that for a couple of years. So.
Right, absolutely. I think that's a wise thing. The iPad Air is a fantastic device, and the other thing you're getting with an iPad that has not been put into the MacBooks is well, if you choose to get it, is cellular capability.
Right.
Which I do love having in the iPad.
And 9 times out of 10, if you are with one of the bigger companies like Spectrum or Comcast, sometimes you don't even need cellular data because you can just connect to their mobile hotspot.
Yeah, I don't know how many. I forget what Xfinity Comcast says they have, but it's millions of hotspots around the country. Yep.
So let's go a little bit more into more detail. We've told people about what the course entails, or actually we haven't got to that part, but how it was born. But what do we do in this iPad for All computing? I mean, do we teach voiceover to blind users? Do we teach sighted people how to use Stage Manager? Do we teach everybody how to multitask? What do we do in this course?
So this course is designed to really teach you iPad from the ground up, whether that's productivity. Productivity is a big part of it, but also, the fun and entertaining stuff too. So we will teach multitasking. I've not yet made a definitive decision on how involved we will get with Stage Manager, since the vast majority of our users do tend to be voiceover users. Now, having said that, I want to make it very clear that the course is for everybody, and we often do have sighted users, and they benefit from it, and it's a blessing to them. So we're not saying you can't take it if you're sighted, but I don't know how involved we'll get with Stage Manager, because the last time I tested Stage Manager, I felt like it was more visual than, a benefit to a voiceover user. Having said that, though, I have not tested Stage Manager since probably version 16.1. So I will do that again before the start of the course. But other than that, we do teach multitasking. We do teach all of those features, the drag and drop, the split screen, and we try to teach a variety of apps. Not in, we're not going to teach you every detail because we have paid training if you need to go further, but we do introduce you to creating a document in Pages and creating a slideshow in Keynote and creating a spreadsheet in Numbers. And we teach you how to make a simple movie in Clips. And, we do all of these things and more. As far as voiceover goes, and of course, Cliff brought that up because we have learned a lot in these past 5 years. Of course, we're always works in progress, and, praise God, he's growing us. We always have more, further to go. But how far he's brought us already, praise God. And we have learned so much in the past 5 years. And one of the first things we learned was that it is not possible to teach voiceover and teach the iPad at the level we want to teach it, because you're always going to end up spending more time on one and then sacrificing the other. And so it's for that reason that we created our voiceover in and out course, which we've completed for this year. We'll have another one in the fall, but we do that typically every October through almost Christmas time. And that course is designed to teach people how to use voiceover from the ground up. If they don't know how to do voiceover gestures, or don't know what the rotor is, or, want to go further on voiceover and activities and all these things, we teach that in a separate course, so that the expectation is, if you do need voiceover, that you will have at least a basic working knowledge of a reasonable working knowledge of how to use voiceover before you come into this iPad class.
Yes, we have learned a lot, in this class over the last 6 years, and we've tried, teaching it live. We've tried recordings, and personally, I think they both work better. They both have their benefits. When you play a recording, you're able to get more done without a lot of repetitiveness. But when you do teach live, you're able to give people, quick things to do if they have their iPad there, so they can ask questions in case they, not catching on. So there's benefits in both ways, and we both do it. I did it in the more with the Mac class, some live recordings, or some live sessions and some recordings, and we did it in the past this last voiceover in and out course also.
Right.
So how do we sign up for this class?
So there will be an announcement about that, probably released right in conjunction with this episode. And you will be able to sign up. What we need you to make sure of is that you're subscribed to our newsletters. And both our websites, ttjtech.biz, and also stiritup.com, which, of course, remember, is with a U, not an I in the word stir. Both of those websites have a subscribe button. And you just simply click that button. It brings up a little popover asking you to enter your email address. If you're a VoiceOver user, be sure you don't try to jump around, because it's not actually going to load a separate page. A lot of our VoiceOver users expect that when they click subscribe, it's going to take them to a new page, and that's not what happens. And then they'll realize, oh, the page is the same, so they'll think it didn't do anything. But it at the very bottom, it brings up like a modal or a popover of some sort. And we did a demo of that on YouTube if you need to listen to that with VoiceOver. But it brings it up at the bottom, just asks you to enter your email address to subscribe. And you do that, and again, then at the bottom it says, success, you've been signed up, whatever. Doesn't send you a welcome confirmation email or anything like that. Not a lot of fanfare, just very simple. But then you are subscribed to our newsletters. And also, we'll be putting this on other newsletters if you're on different email lists, like Only Apple Talk and Support, which we run, or, a few others. But what will come is an announcement of the iPad course with a registration link. And when you click that link to register for the course, it will ask you to fill out, a basic form, your name, your email address. We want to make sure you do your own, because we've discovered that the link that you get to join is unique for each person who registers. So just click the link to register, enter your name and your email address, and then you will get an email directly from Zoom, because we host these in the Zoom platform. And so you'll get an email directly from Zoom saying, here's the link to join iPad for All Computing 2023. And that's it. Just hang on to that link. We're going to be doing, what did we decide? Mondays and Thursdays, correct?
Correct. At 2 Eastern, 1 Central,
2 p.m. Eastern,
Mountain, 11 Pacific. And if you're in another country, ask Siri.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we've talked to People's Zero for almost 45 minutes or so. I guess we can wrap this up. But again, iPad for All Computing starting, what is it, March 6th? Is that today?
Yep, March, 1 week from today.
Yep, March 6th. And remember to subscribe to both our YouTube channels. Mine is youtube.com, / stir
Yes.
coast to coast. Mine is coast to coast now because somebody else had my stir with the U. I can't believe that. And then, of course, we have our podcast, ttjtech.biz. Just go to his website and you'll find all the links you need. Same with mine, Stir It Up, STURITUP.com. And you can search for any of our podcasts at Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting platform. Say that 3 times. So for ttjtech.biz, I'm Cliff with StirItUp.com. Thanks for joining us.